right, welcome to the Prospect Podcast on a lovely, lovely day. Um, although over here it's raining, and we have Good Friday going on, so we're from at least for me, I'm excited about that. Not about the events that took place, but obviously what the subsequent events that take place and from it, which is he will rise.
Amen
And
to that.
No, amen to that. Um, so today's a great day, and of course, we've packed our day. Of course, I guess unholy wise, we've
All
packed our
right.
day in there.
Good idea.
So that's it. We still gotta earn a living and do something every single day, right? I'm Coach Schumann. Welcome to Prospect Podcast. As always, I have Coach D with me to the left, and although we do play musical chairs and who's going to be where on StreamYard. So today I get the lovely choice of being in the middle. We have a fantastic guest today, really a legend in the strength and conditioning space, but obviously he's done a lot more than just strength and conditioning. I don't want to pigeonhole him because he's been a track coach, track and field coach. He's been a football head coach for 20 years, track coach for almost 20 years, founded athletic centers, programs. But I mean, what most people might know him for originally, he was a head strength coach for the Dallas Mavericks in the 90s time period. And then he ended up going to the Cowboys as well. He was their assistant strength coach. He was with the MLS with the Dallas Burn all the way through 2003. He was with the U.S. Bobsled and Skeleton Federation. Those of you who don't know what skeleton is, I think skeleton is when you lay head first, right?
Head first,
Yeah.
face
Yeah.
down.
That's
Good
what I
job.
figured because luge is feet first and
Uh-huh.
skeleton, as
It's-
my mind says, what, skeleton must be dangerous. That's why they call it that, and it's head first, right?
I guess so. It's just all that's left is your skeleton because it blows off of you.
That's exactly right. You're going so darn fast.
But what else do you do from Dallas, Texas, but ice sports?
Yeah, right.
It makes sense. Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. And coach, he won 2 golds and a silver with that group. He was the skeleton team coach for the Lebanese team in 2006, I believe.
Yep.
From an athlete preparation standpoint, over 60 NFL draft picks, including top 10 overall selection. He's trained athletes across, obviously, as you can tell, a wide variety of sports, including PGA. So MLB, NFL, NBA, PGA, Olympic sports. And I already covered some of his personal coaching aspects with respect to high school football coaching and track and field head coaching roles. I could go on and on and on, which I'm going to let you do, by the way, which I'm going to let you do in a few seconds. But I mean, he's worked with hundreds of thousands of athletes over the years, and it's really, really a pleasure to have the opportunity talk to Coach King and really dive into this world, especially as transformational as this space has become.
Right.
And a lot of changes and some things that stay the same, some things that have changed. And we can't wait to talk to you because you've been at the forefront of a lot of this stuff, and obviously you've seen the evolution of it. I mean, someone who's worked with the bobsled team understands probably how important that initial burst explosion acceleration is,
Exactly.
and you probably developed some things even from the time when you started with your basketball players and football players. You probably started to really continue to evolve because bobsledding really puts that into your forefront, right? Maybe even more so than a 100-meter dash because it's such a short window of sprinting on ice, where you have to develop such a short burst in such a short time period where timing is so essential for the rest of the race. So, I can't wait to talk about all that stuff. So, Coach, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. First of all, we're excited to talk to you. And your name was easy to spell. Yesterday, I screwed up Saj Stockers. He's the head coach at Davidson Football University, and I screwed up his name. I can't believe it because Derek put it in there. It was like You know, and the only thing I could try to blame it, even though it obviously there's no one to blame other than me. The only thing I could try to blame it on is that my eyes are so terrible up
Yeah,
close. They
that's a
used to
good
be.
one.
I used to be so great. I mean, it was
Yeah, it's
like my
valid.
thing as
It's
an
valid.
athlete.
Well, I just
That
feel
was
it.
my thing as an athlete, that I could see anything. And now it's just driving me absolutely bonkers
You're 40
that if
what?
I don't check twice, an E looks like an 8, a 3 looks like an 8, and the only thing, if I could hope to blame anything, that somehow an A looked like a U. But
Oh, God.
that's what I screwed up, obviously. So but more than likely, I probably was just making haste, which makes waste. That's probably
Yeah.
more than likely what was
Well,
going on.
that happens. Well, I
That
just tell
happened.
people my name is Bob. Don't spell it backwards. The little
That's
B
great.
looks stupid up front.
That's
Yeah,
right. That's right.
That's good.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's good. That makes sense.
That makes a ton of sense. Well, Coach, it's great to have you on. I touched on your background. I would love for you to really kind of take us on your journey. From the time you really started getting into, maybe even from the time that you were, an athlete yourself. Talk about your journey and kind of where it took you. Obviously, into the now you're obviously focused in the training athlete realm completely. But take us on your whole entire journey in your career.
So thanks for having me once again. And I'm just going to say over and over, it's like it's better to be lucky than good. And, being in the right place at the right time, I had the opportunity to meet people who knew people and referred me to people. In other words, I was coaching in the high school setting, private school here in Texas, and the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks was a parent there with a student. He blew his ACL out in a skiing accident, and nobody knew anything about strength and conditioning early 80s as far as like a broad spectrum profession. But he assumed, because I did the strength work at the high school, track, so forth, he said, "Can you come work my leg out, my knee out in my home gym?" I said, "Fine." He lives down the street. And so that started, and I guess I did a good enough job that the conversation expanded. And he said, I want you to go talk to our GM. And so I went down and we had a little talk about the Dallas Mavericks hiring a strength and conditioning coach. And there was only 2 or 3, 4 guys in the entire league at that time. So we have a conversation, and he sends me, down the chain. I talk to general manager, coach, the athletic trainer, and eventually they decide, okay, let's give it a run. So it's the dominoes falling program. So once the Mavericks hired me, then I had more of a credibility, badge now. So, well, I'm with the NBA. I must be pretty good at what I do. Now I'm learning. I'm a day ahead of everybody. That's all I'm doing. Learning the job
Right.
on the job. And so,
On the fly. There wasn't a roadmap though.
I am a day ahead of you,
nobody had
so-
ever done this. Yeah.
And
You were doing your thing.
If we started talking about just facilities, it's like, weight room, what weight room? And so we are literally making it up as we go, because the organization doesn't know. They say, here's what we do. They don't know. And
Right.
so what do we do in the NBA? I don't know. So let's figure it out. So I started making calls, called other guys in the league, because I had, now the access to call another NBA strength coach and say, hey, I'm starting a program, blah, blah, blah. Excuse me. So I would go visit and start building a program around what kind of was the norm in the league. And just a long story short, the norm is whatever the players will tolerate. And so, if I had a big guy and I could get him to do hang cleans, we did it. If I had a little point guard running around, I'd just do a little more dumbbell work and whatever, but we all got in the weight room one way or the other. From there, the dominoes began to fall. And so with, the NBA badge, had a little credibility. And so I'd get a call here and a call there. I got to thank Randy Smythe out loud for the next phase, because he was the Speed City development guy way back in the day. And
I remember Speed City. They had
Randy
the pamphlets and they had the bungees and
the hurdles, the ladders, all the gadgets, I call them toys. All the toys we have for speed training. Well, one thing leads to another, and so he's very entrepreneurial. And so he tracked me down because I'm in the NBA and I'm, a door for him to get, into that market.
Right.
Well, we do speed camps together. He's going around the country and, pay $40, come do a 3-hour speed workout, all kids. We started doing that, and you start building. And so I get more interested in the details of those kind of programs and everything from just sheer sprint mechanics to program design. And I have what I call a speed bag to this day that is just my bag of toys with hurdle ladders, belts, bands, blah, 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 tennis balls. And I can, I'm mobile. I can go anywhere if anybody calls, say we need a speed camp, so forth, so on. So we got that. But Randy was very aggressive about meeting coaches. He had met the strength coach at the Cowboys, Mike Woysick at the time, and he said, "You need to talk to Mike Woysick." So he brokered a dinner, and we all went out. Had some snacks and beer at the pub over near the facility, and I met with Randy and Mike, and we started talking. Randy was great. He goes, "You guys might be able to hook up and work together on this deal." Mike didn't have any assistants. You're talking about an NFL franchise. And the Cowboys, in my opinion, were kind of coming out of the strength and conditioning dark ages when Jimmy Johnson arrived. And so Mike was trying to get that fire lit. So it worked. And I went out and started working with Mike in the off season because at that time, the Mavericks weren't that good. And so our season ended, Cowboy off season began. So I just went down the road and worked with Mike through his off season. The Cowboys went to camp, and the Maverick off season officially began. And so there was only like a 5-minute overlap in the season training. And so now my year is complete. I'm going from NBA to NFL in one form or fashion or another all year long. And then we just started getting phone calls, and Dallas Burns soccer team called, and that was a MLS. It's now the Dallas FC Dallas now. They changed the European thing. And so things just kept going, and because of my work with teams and stuff, I was in my own little facility, and when I wasn't there, we were training and doing our thing, and people would find me. I had a parent brought a kid in for speed training. We had group work, and so somehow, some way, that family was connected with the U.S. Bobsled and Skeleton Federation, and they go, "Hey, we want you to." So now I'm in Lake Placid, New York at a camp. And so the Lake Placid Olympic Training Center, we had, and I think this is clutch, we had first skeleton that I was working with training camp. And there's 47 people for 3 spots, right? And so I'm looking across the board, and there's like, wait a minute, all these people from all over the country, all different coaches. Each one of you guys could have a different athlete that you coach. And now I've got to communicate to them and convince them that what I'm going to tell them is the best method to do their training to make the team, first of all,
right,
and even compete for a medal. And so that is where I decided, look, let me create a language they can understand. All the world in Olympics is speed. We were talking about this yesterday. We have a shot putter in here I'm started working with, and it's like, it is a speed event. If you're a 900-pound guy and a 16-pound ball, it is a speed event. If you're not fast in the ring, you're going to be last on the sheet. So speed in the ring is the key. So with the skeleton, the same thing. You've got to be able to, the push is what I coached. I coached 20 meters of the entire race. So from the time they left the starting block to the time they loaded, which is when they get on the sled, is called the push. That's my job. So I had to come up with something to make them understand how you've got to learn how to be a sprinter. Now, let me interrupt myself. I teach everybody how to be a sprinter. If you're 6'6", 320, right tackle, today you are 6 feet, 185. I want you to think sprint. I want you to think fast. Don't give me that, Clydesdale approach because you're a 320 guy. Today you're a sprinter. I'm going to teach you, then your sports posture will take over. Is the way I phrase it. So if you're a lineman or, guard in basketball, your sports posture will take over. In the meantime, At some point, you're going to have to sprint. And everybody remembers the famed Larry Allen ran down a guy in the New Orleans Saints game that intercepted the ball. It's like, where the hell did he come from? I can't take credit for that, but that's the principle I'm looking for. I worked with Larry for I don't know how many years. He could run. So
Right.
we're out there training and to communicate to all these athletes that I think here's what you need to understand what to do. And I say it like this. This is all by design. If steps 1 and 2 are good, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 will be fine. So see, I go slow and then speed up, right? It's just a method, a way to teach it. Steps 1 and 2 make 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 good. And so from there, let's go to the NFL Combine. There's money in the 40. That's the first thing the guys hear from me. There's money in the 40. And so
Right.
we're going to start working the 40 start. So, 6'6", 320, if steps 1 and 2 are good, 3, 4, 5 is going to be fine. Now, the little guys, the 5'9", 5'10" guys, no problem. But we have to have a starting point. And from there, we'll go into the rest of the sprint mechanics, the start, the sprint, the finish. So, and every coach approaches it, their way. But what I learned is that it doesn't matter what I got a 10-year vet in here now. I just showed up with another guy, NFL guy. And it doesn't matter. What we teach is language that you can understand. So, for example, now let me know, guys, when I get off on you punch my button here. So we're going to do speed.
No, we love it. Believe me, you go as long as you need to.
So if we say, okay, look, you're going to once the foot strikes the ground, it's going to fly away. You strike a match. You don't pound the ground. No disrespect, but I always talk about don't wake up the Chinese. So if you're pounding the ground, they're asleep on the other side of the earth. Don't wake them up. So we say, tear your foot off the ground, like striking a match, you're striking the ground. And so to help you, if you don't understand that, Roadrunner feet. Just turn on the cartoon and watch the Roadrunner cartoon. We want Roadrunner feet. And sometimes the cartoon actually picks a pretty decent oval on the foot.
Right.
Look at it. And so we're talking about, foot strike, which, pedal the bicycle. That's, everybody knows how to pedal the bicycle. We have that drill. Now, the way we do speed training drills that don't make sense initially, if you feel stupid doing it, you're probably doing it right. And that way we diffuse all the pushback. Oh, I feel so stupid. I don't like that. If you feel stupid doing it, you're probably doing it right. Now, pedal the bicycle. Okay. And we do this with the entire body, whether it's the arm swing, torso, posture, et cetera, et cetera. So there's no extra for speed except for more speed. So we are going to get that started day 1 and 2. And so just to give you a better example, well, how old do you start them? How old is he? 7, bring him. I said, I have 2 requirements. Can they pay attention and can they finish the work? They have to be able to, they can't sit down and whine about doing it, but I don't have any, restrictions as far as, by the time they're 7 to 9, we're just going to teach fundamentals and they eat it up because we have games.
Oh, no doubt.
And so parents, they can be overly enthusiastic, but I say, look, you can watch, you cannot help. So go sit around. And so off we go. And I had a 9-year-old in here yesterday, and she's athletic, man. I tell you what, I say, go make me look good.
That's right.
Always helps.
Yeah. So, just tell me, interrupt me, ask questions because, we got a 40-year deal going here.
Well, it's an interesting, good starting point where you talked about striking a match because you see, there's so many different cues that I see out there, and they're different than that. So they'll say punch the ground. And I always say, why would you want to punch the ground? That one is hard for me to understand.
You don't light a match like this.
Correct. Because you're just putting it right. I understand. There is an element to pushing back towards it with it, right? So you're pushing back when you're coming out of the blocks, or you're actually driving into the ground, but you're actually pushing back to go forward. So you're pushing, and then there's like a a punch element to it. But striking the ground, I think of all the people that we've talked to, you might be the first person that actually used the terms striking a match, and I kind of want to dive a little bit into that, even though it seems like a simple kind of thing, because there's so many different cues that have been used that are. I feel like cues can be used at different stages for people. Some cues work for this, and then maybe it doesn't work anymore once they get to a certain stage. But strike the match is interesting. That's the first time, Derek. I don't know if you've ever heard before. That's the first time I've ever heard that, actually. And I've been coaching speed and sprinters forever. So
it's going to get better.
Yeah, good. So I want you to dive a little bit more into that. I understand the concept of what striking a match is, but what does that cue allow them to understand how to do?
Circle, tear the foot off the ground, back to the Roadrunner cartoon. See, the whole thing is going to come back around. So when I strike the match, and we all have the same language for like the contact phase, the flyaway phase, recovery phase. We're phasing everything. Let me show you something. If you get another guy and sit in an office chair that that swivels and spins, and you want to make a point, now watch this. It cracks people up, but I'm going to start spinning you. And so when I grab the chair, I'm going to grab it and spin you. Once you start moving, I can open my hand and just, see how my hand is open here. I just like in the beginning, I got to grab, and then I let go and open up. And so I'm striking the chair, and I'm sweeping the ground. All of these imply light things. Strike is what? Quick and light. Okay. And so if I spin the chair with you in it, I'm just swiping the chair as you go around, and it'll keep its momentum, and there you go. And so that's one phase, but then the hard part a lot of times is the recovery aspect of the foot.
Right.
Okay?
The pull through, essentially.
Exactly. And what we want to do is we say everything still applies: knee up, heel up, toe up. And so we've tried to do a lot of different things to accent each one of those elements. And so we have a drill we call running butt kicks. We all do butt kicks or heel to butt with your knee, your thigh is fixed and you're doing that, blah, blah. That's good. But we do a thing called running butt kicks where we say, run as normal as you can and kick your butt more than normal. And we want that foot up, around, and down. And I have to say that. I have to say up, around, and down. I say it so much that, I want the athletes to understand. And we're talking about the foot up, around, and down. And so all of a sudden we have created pedaling the bicycle, Roadrunner feet, sweeping the foot off the ground. And what we'll do is start the drill. Okay, pedal the bicycle, convert into a run. Okay, and here's the greatest takeaway of the day: speed exposes flaws. And the example of that is I was on the track one summer, had my guys. Across the track was the other guys, and I was watching them. I go, "Oh, dude, they look pretty good." So they're doing all the standard warm-up drills, everything we all do, whatever it is, heels, butt, high knees, butt kicks, blah, blah, blah. And they started running, and I thought, what happened to the guys that just did the drills? Because they drill great. And so what I started doing, and this is back in the 80s, what I started doing from that day forward, say, I don't want any drill in my program that doesn't translate. Okay.
Absolutely.
Now there are some, butt kicks are good. You need to get a dynamic stretch in the quad and the hamstring firing, all that. But I want drills that translate. We have a drill called big arms. Okay. And so it's just to teach arm swing, but you can do it, elbow back, thumb in your belt loop. Well, where's your belt loop? It's right here at the crest of the iliac. So we don't want your hand in your pockets. We don't want your hands down by your knees. So if we do thumb in your belt loop, the arms are going to go where that's pretty good language. And so we don't want to flex the elbow at 89 degrees and make sure that there's get rid of all that. Just elbow back, knee up, done. Elbow back, knee up. And then as they start speeding up, we'll see flaws. And then we have created a battery of drills that are designed to correct those mistakes. Good example. We say, hands are a problem. Hands have been a problem forever because
Always.
they do this action, and I am anti this because the lever's too long. So we have to carry the egg, don't break it. Carry the egg. Oh, you broke the egg. Okay, because if you do this, my theme is tightness travels. So if I make a fist,
Okay.
I'm going to make my elbow tight, my shoulder gets tight. Now I'm just rigid, and we don't want rigid. Carry the egg, but don't break it. How do I teach that? Well, I guess I'll go to the sporting goods store and buy a bag of cheap ping pong balls. So now carry the egg, don't break it. And so there's no weight to the ping pong ball to throw them off. We do carry hand weights, by the way. But now my hand is carrying the egg, but don't break it with the ping pong ball. Put it down. Now let's see. And we just build that, whatever you want to call it, neuromuscular facilitation, muscle memory, blah, blah.
All the fancy words.
So so here's the deal. I'm doing whatever I'm doing. And if I say I'm a coach's clinic and there's 50 coaches watching me do something on there and there's a mistake, the athlete makes a mistake, 50 coaches have this, what the mistake is. Oh, they're not doing blah, blah, blah. All right. I agree. What's the answer? Okay. Fix it. Like I said, coaching football for 20 years, I believe my specialty was halftime. So whatever you're doing in the first half isn't happening in the second half.
Right.
I can fix it, and so
no doubt.
If you're running and there's a mistake, fix it. What's the answer? Don't tell me there's a problem. We all can see it. And so that's where I have my bag of tricks. Like I said, we just find ways to make it work on the spot. So words aren't going to work, obviously,
Right.
Pick your feet up. Well, what does that mean? Get your knees up. Well, next thing I've got a drum major marching, with the pick your knees up. So we have to fix everything so that it, mechanics produce efficiency, efficiency produces speed, and speed exposes flaws. So the cycle continues and we get better and better. Okay. I'm going to take a breath. You all have a question?
Yeah. So I've got a bunch of questions. So a couple things. So with respect to, first of all, with drills wise, I agree with you. I always, one of the things I try to tell athletes that I coach at speed is when I was in high school, I was a very good hurdler, and we didn't do a ton of the quote unquote hurdle specialization drills. We in high school we did. When I ran a little bit in college, we did more of that stuff. But we didn't do like the one step stuff. We didn't do any of that stuff. Like we didn't do leg over each hurdle. We didn't. We did lead leg, trail leg, and then we sprinted over the hurdles and learn how to turn our legs over fast. And then my father was a quote unquote hurdle. He coached me in the hurdles, and he's coached a million great hurdlers, like lots of them.
That's awesome.
And we never did any of that. And it really came from the fact that when he started coaching, he was not a track athlete. So he had to learn everything from a general standpoint, and everything stayed very basic. And what he realized was that for high school athletes, that's the majority of what they need. When they go to college and they want to, squeeze more ounces out of them, but if you try to squeeze it before they get good at the basics, they never get there, right? So I always used to laugh because guys would do all these drills and they look phenomenal, and then I would smoke them, absolutely smoke them. And all my friends would be like, "Wow, that kid looks good." I'm like, "Nah, it's not gonna matter." So the reason why I bring it up is that there's a lot of drills that do look good, and there has to be a purpose. And one of the things that frustrates me is in speed is the lack of transition drills. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're doing high knees into a 5 or 10 yard sprint, right? So or any A skips, whatever it is that you're doing from a warm up. You don't want to extend it out long because you're still warming up, but that transition and change of gears is what I want to start trying to teach. So first off, I 100% agree with you. what I would love to know is my first question is: are there certain things that you think translate really well towards your sprint workouts in order to develop speed, meaning early drills that you think translate really well before you get into your actual speed workout is?
Yes, and I'm going to footnote that. Hang on one second.
Sure.
Okay, so this is my Andy Reid speed play card.
Awesome.
Okay? So we have everything on here. Okay, now the reason I show you that, everybody's got them. Everybody's got their card. Back in the 70s, and this is going to date me a lot. Out of California, there was an organization called the New Games Foundation, and it was geared towards physical education and activities with kids, wherever you are. And they had a principle: if you have an activity that you're doing and it's about over, or it hits a wall, or it's just execution's not working, you just can't get it going. Their deal was perfect. You say new game, and that meant we're changing. And it was part of the mechanic of the activity. So when you said new game, nobody, what are you talking about? New game. All right, let's go. And so it was just kill it and go to the next thing. And so during our speed sessions, I'll do that. That carried over. So if we're working out, to your point about drills and things, if I'm seeing that, well, this is ahead of them, or it's just not appropriate for what we're trying to do. All right, guys, new game. And they just know we're doing something different. They didn't know that I didn't like it, or I bombed, or whatever I did. I just new game. So you go back to what I said earlier, is that coaches' jobs are problem solving. And so I will go through my menu you just showed and find the solution. What's the antidote to your illness here? You have you shuffle poorly, or actually you shuffle really good. So we have to break that. And, I'm just going to use pedal of the bicycle as an example. Now just speed that up and transition. So most of the drills will transition into the actual method you should use to run. Okay. So it's not like a drill done. And, the only couple of things like butt kicks, I don't want to see that when you're running, as far as keeping your knee down, but
Right.
you are able to transition. One of the things we talked about is we have warm up, lead up. And warm up is just what it sounds like. Lead up are those drills, and I have two sets. Now here comes program design. We train on themes. So if you're in my facility in the summer, you come in, we're doing our Monday speed training theme is 0 to 10 every Monday. Our Tuesday is generic change of direction. We're going to do 5, 10, 5, whatever cone drills I have on my play card. Wednesday is 0 to 30. Now it's obviously 0 to 10, we're working first two steps 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 0 to 30 is we want you past the start and up, and we want you sprinting now. So now
Right.
we're looking at the full mechanic. Thursday is as sport specific as possible, change of direction. Okay. And so, and I have that menu. For example, it turns out in my world, the 5, 10, 5 is my all-time great. It just works. The 5, 10, 5 Pro Shuttle, it just works. Now, here's what I love this stuff. Here's what happened. I have XYZ number of drills for whatever I do, and I was watching one day, thankfully, and I realized that you know what, this is super rhythmic. 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 5. And so it's like, wait a minute, that's not sports. Now,
No.
we now have what's called the staggered shuttle, 5, 8, 3, and it'll break your hip. You're used to doing the 5, 10, 5, so you go 5, 8, and try to get back 3. It's just like, man, you're all over the map. And so
Right.
it's really great at working on posture in a bad position. Okay. Quickness is speed in a small space. That's my definition. I don't know if you like it or not, but quickness is speed in a small space. So we have a ton of drills. I have the eye, we call it the eye of pain, but I have a drill that is 250 yards in a 5-yard space. And I mean, it's not overly complicated, but we have 2 cones 5 yards apart. You're always going forward, and then you come back the same way 5 times. Forward, back pedal 5 times. Forward, shuffle left, forward, shuffle right. Da, 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 da. So we do those 5 movements, 250 yards in a 5-yard space. Change of direction is the hardest on the legs. So if you want to get in shape,
the start, the stop, right? Like the back and the forth.
If you want to get in shape, do change of direction. We have the super shuttle is 100 yards in a 5-10-yard space.
Well, I was just going to reference that, and I don't want to cut you off, but Coach, but like, when you would do your, when you would go into camp, right? Preseason camp, football camp was the sport in college, right? Like you would always, you'd come back home and you'd work out with guys and, hey, what's your conditioning test? Yeah. And it would be, hey, we're doing 300-yard shuttles. Well, okay. Well, how far are the shuttles? Are you going 50? Are you going 25? Right? Like that was always a thing. I mean, now for me, I had to do 16 110s, which was unbelievable, right? Like we were doing 110-yard sprints and for time based off your position group and all that. But I mean, so I never did the shuttles, but those guys used to come and they would be bitching and moaning and ripping of like, the difference from doing a 300-yard shuttle 50s and 25 in comparison to now, 50 yards and then comparison to 25-yard. Because I remember one year a guy had a coaching change, right? So instead of doing it 50 yards, they were doing it 25. And it was just misery. So it's funny that you reference that in terms of that start and stop, how much it can actually condition your body and how much it crushes those legs. It's just such a game changer.
We teach all the posture to go with that. You squat when you stop, feet apart, the story, hips between your knees, all the mechanical stuff. We don't want to be, even then, we don't want to be sloppy. And
of course,
I know that with the Cowboys, we ran 16 110s, and Mike and I were young enough that we would run the test with the players.
Yeah, no doubt.
I've run 16 110s more than once. It's not.
And I'll tell you, that was like, that was usually like day 2. Like you got there, moved in, whatever, and it was like, bam, we're conditioning tested. And I'm telling you, those being a freshman, right, or watching freshmen, it was like, buddy, like you're really contemplating life. I mean, everybody's miserable, but you're like, hey, we're kind of prepared. Those guys, it was like, all right, what did I just get myself into? Like, this isn't football, right? It was always the thing. It was like, what does this have to do with football? And when you look at it, and we've talked to so many guys on here, the main philosophy, especially, I mean, for me personally, but across the board, is look, your drills in terms of everything, right? Whether it's speed, whether it's change of direction, whether it's, straight out sprinting, right? Like you want to mimic what happens in a game, right? Especially for football, where you're on the practice field so much more than you're in game-like situations. And it's just so hard for coaches to kind of now put it all together where the drills that they're doing, right, mimic something as close to game-like situations as possible, right? And it's just very hard.
Well, we did, to that point when I was coaching high school ball, we do the theme thing. So on Monday, I just brought it in. Monday, we were doing 110s. Sorry, guys. Well, that again is pacing and rhythmic. So I don't know where it came from. I know where it came from. I was reading an article in Track and Field News. And one of the things article I read was the Americans who had, and this is 80s again, Americans who had gone to Europe to train came back and said, dang, they train fast. Forget this pace stuff. They train fast all the time.
Yep.
And so I kind of got an idea from that where we started doing, we did our 110s on Monday. Then every other week, I started doing high speed 110s. And the rule is this, sounds insane, but we would do 3 to 5 110s. Everybody's instructed. You run at 95% of your effort. We're not racing. Do not try to beat your buddy. Just run 95% of your effort. You get a 3-minute rest, which now that in conditioning is unheard of, right? And so, but we're only running 3 to 5 of these, and I'll show you why. So what I did was I said, okay, they're at the other end of the field. When I blow the whistle and raise my hand, It's time to go at 3 minutes. If the captains decide we're not ready, you can go to 5 minutes, but then you have to go. And so off we go. What I would do, the reason we run 3 to 5 of those is because I'm timing them. And so they're coming, I'm just use 12 as a round number. They're coming down in 12 seconds, and then they come down in 14, we're done, because the high speed just went away. And now we're just running to be running.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's where it just got unknowingly good. So we do these 3 to 5 high-speed 110s. The following Monday is normal interval 110s, 16, 45, whatever. Well, they couldn't help it, and all of a sudden they're running 14 seconds. They'll run 16 if they can get away with running 16.
Sure.
But they can't. They ran the high-speed 110s last time, so off they go. So now they're flying into the interval training. Come back the next week, do 3 to 5 high speed. Now we're doing all 5. And our conditioning, somewhat inherent speed training was going on during the season. It would turn out to be a phenomenal find. And so high speed works. And then what we did on Monday, was alternate that. Tuesday, I wanted to make sure that we had a deal. I made this up. I wanted to open the lactic acid floodgates. So we did what I, for lack of a better name, is run a crossfire. So we know at we'll say 330, 350 meters, you go lactic acid, the whole butt lock thing's going to kick in. So what I did is I calculated, we got on the sideline at the goal line. We run across to the 10, back across the 20, 30, 40, 50, 40. I've forgotten now. I think that's 380 yards or something like that. Have everybody on the team lined up, 60 guys, and you just put a cone out. When he passes, you go. So go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 40. Walk back, go. And it turns out that they were good enough to walk back slow enough that I got the 1-to-1 work relief ratio I had scheduled. And so if it took them 50 seconds to run it, it'll take them 50, 55 seconds to walk back because they knew how to correctly walk slow. And so when they got back, boom, go. And we'd run 2 of those because, I'm not – more than that, it's just not going to be effective. Wednesday, because we're getting closer to game day on Friday night, I did a timed run, just kind of active recovery. So we would just don't ask why, because I have long forgotten, but I wanted to run 8 minutes. The theory being everybody should be able to run an 8-minute mile. But just for the heck of it, because it's hard for me, and so I thought it'd be hard for them. You ran for 7 minutes, I blew the whistle, walk a minute, run a minute. And so that start, stop, restart was just a beating. And it worked. We always for a little old high school team, we went 13-0. So that was pretty good. And I can't remember what it was over 3 years. It was like 32, 3-1, something like that. A couple of state championships, and it worked. So we had a lot of two-way players, so that was necessary to run hard.
What do you think about, so you talked about conditioning aspects, and I'm going to push into a little bit of that area. I'm sure. Are you familiar with like feed to catch training or any of that stuff?
Say again?
The feed to catch training or anything like that?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So a lot of the stuff that's been going around is kind of very contrary to that, which means that long breaks, speed development, do it up front before you do anything else, and focus on obviously timing when you can, and no, very little conditioning elements, meaning if you're going to do a conditioning element, you do like a time 23-second run, see how far it can get, right? So kind of using it from that standpoint. So it's still speed related, but focused on a time related element to if they're going to get any kind of speed conditioning, quote unquote. So talk about maybe your thoughts from that standpoint. Where is conditioning important? What is unnecessary there? I'd love for you to dive a little bit into it.
I don't know where the start is, but let me just put it like this. On back to our the football conditioning we did, kind of to the point, I'm going to lead into it. I started alternating. I can't remember what day it was, but one of the days, instead of, we do the 110s, when the weather changed, it got a little cooler here in Texas. One of the things I wanted to do on a Wednesday, besides the timed run, for lack of a better name, we call it metabolic training, right? So what we did, we ran 50s, and they got 6-7 seconds to run it, and they got a 25-second rest. That's the play clock. And so we're going to be in and out of the huddle, right? So run the 50. The 50 was about the amount of time I just made stuff up. So if a play is 3 or 4 seconds and they're running 6 or 7 seconds, I double the energy output to duplicate contact. It's not there. So I rationalized that 7 seconds would work, and that would be 50 yards. 25-second rest, and then back again. And we ran them in
next play.
We ran them in groups of 12, theoretically 12-minute quarters in high school. And so, I kind of justified everything by numbers, whether they were true or not. So, but it worked.
Right.
Now, on some of the stuff you're asking about, and kind of refresh me when I go, because I'm old and forget, but the running and conditioning part of it, you just obviously, coaches like to think they go fast, they go hard in practice, and they get them ready for the game by what they do in practice. And I've been on both ends of the spectrum where I don't believe in separate conditioning because blah, 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 blah. And I don't believe that is the correct thing to do, because your energy output in competition is different from what you do in practice. Nobody that I ever coached went home that whatever night and laid in bed and go, I got Coach King tomorrow, I got to get ready. No, they have practice, and they're not looking forward to it. Friday night, different game. They're pumped. And so the energy output, even before they get on the field, is enormous. And, keeping them under control in pregame and blah, blah, blah. So the energy output is enormous, and we have to build a reserve. You have to have the ability. Everybody on the planet talks. Jimmy Johnson, when we were in the Cowboys, used to get to halftime and say, all right, just get them into the fourth quarter. And we got them. And that was true. So you have to be in shape. There's, we used to call it, or I do, in summer, I'm going to get you in shape to get in shape. Okay? Because I can't get you into game shape with my off-field training and summer training. But I'm going to get you in shape to get in shape, so when you go to camp, now you can get in shape. So you have to kind of know what each stage you're trying to accomplish and what you're actually doing. So if you're thinking, well, we're getting game shape here. No, no, not yet.
What about the thought that at certain amounts of conditioning will create with less recovery, will create them going at a slower pace, and then that creation of them going at a slower pace will detrain speed. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm going to say right off I agree, but I also am going to say right off that I accounted for it. And
okay.
So that's why there's so much use of a clock. Okay.
Right.
And depends on the situation. When we did a timed run, we'd go out. The timed run was just how far you can go. Right. The lineman and the wide receiver. I had a guy who was a wide receiver. That knucklehead, he would go on Saturday morning, run a cross country meet early before team film. It's like, dude, no way. Now he's a wide receiver, so he didn't get hit 60 times in the game.
Right.
But what we want to do, we want to build what energy is the capacity to do work. Right. So we have to create a bigger capacity. And so consequently, we're going to end up doing as much running relative to the event, right? Specificity of training. And so because of the limitations of contact, how much energy does a hit take? Well, we have to account for that somehow. And so it's by adding speed or reps. We never really, it shows up, but I never really saw guys whatever you want to call it, pacing or saving. You can't hide from the clock anyway. So I don't know if that answers it or gets close.
Yeah, and then is the aspect of so like when you're training bobsledders, right? What would that program look like? Okay, and was that program very different from your football players speed wise? Yeah.
Okay, so let me. This really matters, but let me just go ahead and remember it was the skeleton event.
Okay. Yep.
Which way, the bobsled and skeleton. Okay, so here's the deal. To answer that question, I had to answer that question, right? Okay, once again, Dallas, Texas. We go to the nearest mountain. Oh, wait a minute, we don't have any. So we had to figure out how to create sledding without a mountain. So what one of the athletes did, we found a 4-wheel sled. I mean, it was a plastic toy. And so, but it was the right height where they could lean over and push it. And so we're still flat. We don't have any hills. So what I did was I took one of those overspeed cables and hooked it to the front, and we went downhill. And so, we just pushed, and I just gave them, more speed with the cable like they're on ice. All right, that was a pretty good idea, but I still didn't like it because it was missing something. I'm driving home from, the grocery store getting supplies for the work day, and I'm going to say this in public, so I did make amends. I'm leaving the grocery store parking lot, and a standard metal shopping cart got left on the end of the property. Somebody had pushed it and carried their stuff to the apartment. And so, everybody understand, right? The shopping cart. I pulled over and threw that in my truck and brought it to the training center. So now I have a shopping cart. I load it with just weights and stuff to give it some resistance and hook a cable up to it. So everything is I can mimic gravity and downhill. And they were down low enough that they could push it. We just called it shopping cart technology. And so that's how we dry land trained the skeleton event in Dallas. Now, we could go to Lake Placid or Calgary or Salt Lake City and have a dry track. They had sleds on wheels and could go down the competition track in the summer. So it was really cool. And but I had our guys ready. Obviously, the results speak for it. But moral of the story is not everybody has a big-ass budget and can get whatever they want and facilities they want. So you go down to the park for a hill or you go wherever you go to get the training you need. This is a public service announcement. I was at a facility doing some work for some people, and it had a street out front, straight as an arrow, at the perfect incline I like for going uphill. The steeper the hill, the more the form breaks down, and it's not worth it. This hill was the exact angle. It was 110 meters. And so I take athletes out and run on the street. And what I discovered, because I was young enough at the time, I would run with the athletes. Running uphill on concrete is not the same as running flat in a parking lot. And so when you run uphill on concrete, it's almost as if the ground is coming up to meet you. So your foot strike is not heavy, and you're not going to worry about shin splints. We're not out there every day anyway, but you can run uphill effectively because the angle was correct. Your posture doesn't get destroyed, and your shins aren't taking a beating. And so if you're going uphill on concrete, you have to have pretty bad running technique to hurt yourself because you're pounding the ground, right? So if you run properly uphill, it's not going to be a problem on the street. And so we maximize that pretty good. And we'll get into it later if you want to, but downhill's another story.
Right.
So
that makes a ton of sense. Overspeed versus resistance. Okay, obviously you probably use both, right? Back to the old Speed City days, you know what I mean? The old Speed City stuff. Like I when I was, I update myself a little bit here, but in the 90s, okay, and probably it was the late 80s, I think I first started using this stuff. I was bigger, faster, stronger, and as you remember, and then obviously Speed City from an equipment standpoint, right?
Sure.
So,
Oh, yeah.
and I had quite a few of those things, and so there are two kind of there. Obviously, both are needed. So overspeed and I don't really want to get into a kind of debate whether obviously they have their place. Overspeed has their place. Resistance has their place. What Where do you find that you need to use those two things? So where do you find it's best to use?
That's a great question, and just everything can be an opportunity. Now, I'm actually going to answer the question, but by show of hands, how many people have seen Top Gun? How many people have seen Top Gun 50 times? I've seen every Top Gun and whatnot. All right, so.
And would watch it again and again.
Yes. And okay, now, don't answer, but what did you see? Oh my gosh, that is the best speed training tool ever. I got to get one of those.
Right.
How do they launch those planes off that aircraft carrier?
Right.
Okay, now, back to your question. What we started doing is we get the overspeed cable, get a guy in the back with the strap and the belt and a rope, and provide resistance to the cone when 7 yards in this case. So you provide a medium resistance. The way we do resistance training on the running is that the runner sprints, the resistance is jogging. If you're walking, digging your heels in, it's too heavy. So you just need to know they're back there. So the guy with resistance is jogging. I'm down at the other end of the track with the cable extended. When his feet hit the cone, the guy in the back lets go and the cable takes over. I got my aircraft carrier. Okay, so you know how they have that force plate on the aircraft carrier?
Yep.
The engines are revving up and providing that, and then the catapult launches them. I got to get one of those.
Right.
So we did. And to answer your question is I don't know which is best, but they both work. The answer to the question really comes in the contrast. So if you do the resistance training, we call them regulars. So if you do resistance, you better come back and do a couple of regulars. In other words, we do 30 yards. We don't worry about how far. We don't go far because I don't want to spend all day walking back.
Right.
So we will do a resistance run, whatever I prescribe. I don't care if I'm pushing a sled, holding from the back. We're going to do a 30-yard contrast. So now I want your body to always remember how to sprint. Overspeed with the cable, contrast. Take the cable off, and now see you do that on your own. And so we're back to the beginning. Speed exposes flaws, and so we can find out what we need to work on. Oh, that right arm is terrible. You can see this. I get a lot of. Can you see that? I get a lot of this. Okay,
right.
That is, and so equal and opposite reactions. My hand does this, my elbow is going to go out. Just count on it. It's not just bad looking technique. It's equal and opposite. So hand in, elbow out. So we have to fix that. So anyway, we have advanced it to where with some of the resistance training that we're talking about. If I want to work, knee lift or just the ground foot strike, I will give them a very medium, like a 6 to 8 pound medicine ball to carry and take away their arms. Well, I also added 6 to 8 pounds to their body weight. So now we have resistance going on. I've got two hands on two hands. They carry like a football is not allowed. By the way, I say this earlier, if you carry a football, the other arm will copy it. Okay. So if you have a kid with arm problems, I give them a football and they carry it. Now the other arm, excuse everybody, the other arm is going to copy it and then change arms. And so that's a technique. It doesn't require any money, just think. So I give them, the football to help with the arm swing. So
that's interesting. That reminds me of when people talk about this Exogen weighted where you can put the weights on the different areas of your body, and they would put it on one side and not on the other. To same kind of concept though.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, you just have to always even it out, and,
right?
And it always ends with whatever you want to call it, the correct or the regular or the technical thing you want to work on.
Interesting.
So the speed training just goes everywhere. And so spinning off in the weight room, you know, I have a little 30-yard indoor track in the facility. So we do complexes where we go lift, then we do a weighted jump, then the contrast jump, sprint. And so we do those complexes. So we do, the idea is trying to always challenge the physical development of the athlete. You know, they master that. It's just like, you know, becoming you get used to an antibiotic and you can't cure yourself anymore. You take it so much. So what do we do to stimulate a change? So you just have to keep your eyes open. Watch Top Gun or something.
Yeah. That's interesting. The level of contrast you're using, because I don't think a ton of people use contrast all the time. They do one or the other, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know,
well,
I think that's it's similar to like where I try to always like combine two drills. You know what I mean? Like sprinting and then deceleration, right? Come to a stop, and then reaccelerate, right?
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah. Because I think that but the concept's the same thing, right? You're trying to stimulate a change in what their kind of motor pattern is, right? So,
yes.
And if you stimulate that change over a long time, then some of the area, whatever they're weakened, that they could start to improve that weaker area, and or at least stimulate a change and increase acceleration or increase leg speed. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
No. Well, here's another one of my kind of rules. I don't have a T-shirt. I don't say it. I never say back to basics. When you leave, you messed up. Okay, it's just that simple. Back to basics. Nuh-uh. We start with that. And so everybody does the same warm-up, lead-up drill, so I can see how your body's going that day. We never go back to basics because we never left. And so, when you're doing those resistance and running kind of things, is always bring it back to what we're here for: speed. So let's see you run. And so if we do a gadget or device, we have to see the regular, the sprint itself. And that way we can start, we fix one thing, we go to the next thing, and next thing we know, we have a pretty good runner.
No doubt. One other thing I have a question about, and Derek, if you have any other questions, certainly ask Bob. The weight room, the correlation with the weight room to speed, and then which things correlate best, which things you found don't correlate at all.
Well, I'm gonna quote this the Romanian weightlifting coach I heard speak back in the 80s. One of the back in the 80s. I don't know how old you guys are, but the U.S. got enamored with the Eastern Europeans.
Yes, I'm 52, so I remember it all. Yeah.
So we're bringing the Russians and the Bulgarians and all the Romanians over here because they know everything. It's like, but we don't have their drugs, so it just
doesn't really. Yeah, I mean we can get close, but we ain't really got to take that next step.
I have the manual. Where's the syringe?
Yeah. Exactly.
So. But I did get one thing from one of the Olympic sprint coaches from Romania, and I'm going to quote him: "If you're not strong, you cannot be fast." And so that's the Romanian accent.
That was good though, Coach. With a Texas lean on that too, like that.
Romanian twang.
A little Romanian twang. I like that.
If you're not strong, you can't be fast. And so now, look, we know this. Everybody knows about diminishing return, and more is not better. And I have seen guys squat the house and just they can run. They're blistering fast. And then I've seen guys squat the house, and it's like, what do you mean you have a 2-foot stride? It needs to be. You need a 6.5, 7-foot stride, dude. And so we had to find out that individual's characteristics. We're going to squat. We're going to do the Olympics. And we're going to do, whatever we're going to do, but I'm going to cap some of it. Okay.
Right.
we all talked about it. I mean, it's like, damn, if we could just get a squat rack on the 30-yard line, we'd win. So, well, you're not. So, number one question in sports, can he run? Can he or she run? And, we all also know this. If you get tired, you get weak. So let's go ahead and get everything in order here and make sure we've got, our, whatever you want to call it, our priorities straight, because they're strong and they're in great shape. They can't catch anybody, or they can't break away from anybody. So, speed is crucial. So now you have to take all this in balance. Well, we have to have strength to have speed. We have to be in shape. So we got to run. We run, we can't squat as much. And so it's just a matter of that program design balancing out the needs that you have. Hence, we have come back around to the training themes that I have used over the years to keep from overlapping or neglecting. And that way we have had, tremendous success at every level. I'll give you another example. When we changed coaches for like the 20th time with the Dallas Mavericks back in the 80s.
Yeah, those early years were I don't think people really understand that the Mavericks, like,
because they're great now.
They were the doormat. I mean, if you went there, it was like,
there's two kinds of coaches. Those that have been fired and those that are going to be fired.
Right?
And
like, we've all been there.
And so I had a coach come in and we started talking pre-training camp conditioning, and he was brilliant. He said, give me something basketball related. I mean, we had everything. Every coach would come in and go, okay, we're going to run 23, blah, blah, blah,
right.
blah. And we're going to run 97 5-yard sprints.
Right. And you're like,
well, he said, give me something basketball related. I said, all right, let me think. I got it. I developed this, and I'm quite proud of it. We ran 14 24s. All right, hang on now. I took a game film, and I followed one player for one quarter in the NBA game. I'm sorry, one position. And so even if they subbed in, I kept following that position, and I did as best a calculation as possible. And in a few play, this is Coach King calculations, give or take a lot. If you play a quarter in the NBA, good chance you're going to run a mile. Okay? That's just by the way I calculated it. All right, so let me have a test. I'm going to get you ready to play one NBA quarter. All right, so I'm not going to the track because we used to run 12 minutes. I'm going to do it on the court. So we ran what ultimately became 24s. 24-second shot clock, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say you have to bust your ass for 24 seconds to play defense when the other team has the ball. And then you go down the other end 24 seconds. So what I did is we ran, just all calculated out, 94-foot court. We ran 1, 2, 3, 4. And I forget the numbers now. Let's say 109 yards. Now, if you fact check me, I don't know if I can remember everything. So just go ahead. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 109, 11 yards. You have 24 seconds to make it. I'm going to give you a 48-second rest, 2-to-1 work relief ratio. We ran 14 of those. 14 of those is 5 yards short of a mile. I'm going to get you ready to play one NBA quarter. And it was a hit. Coaches loved it. Players hated it, which what that means is, yeah, they hated it, but they knew. And in the off season, come ask for it. And then it became my post game because we had a deal where if you didn't play 20 minutes of the game, you got to see Coach King. So we would go into the weight room and get on the bike and go for 20 minutes. But I had players say, can we go run 24s? Yeah, sure. Come on. And we go out on the court and run 24s. And because they knew if I need to get in shape, that'll do it. And so specificity of training, yeah, kind of sort of. There was the change of direction was, I calculated that too. I think there's 48 changes of direction doing that. And so I quantified everything we ever did, in distance and change of directions and resistance, so forth. Class, questions?
Yeah. Yes. So, okay. All right. So that drill there, are they running that at max speed?
Oh, no. No, it depends on position. The 7-footer is running pretty hard. That 6'1" point guard, is that all you got? We're done.
Right.
I'm not even tired. They they'll give you. You got to be able to think on your feet sometimes. So I got a player in a what is it called? Not discipline, but I have a player in a situation. So
Right. You're sure.
we have to run 24s, and he's over there with his hands on his hip. He goes, "Bob, it's doing nothing to me." I said, "Let me tell you something. It's doing a lot to you because you have to stand there when everybody's gone, listen to me, talk to you about it, you know." And so I turned it around. I know they're not making him tired. He can run all day. But the fact that, number one, you have to be here. Number two, you're listening to me. The punishment's built in. you're gonna have to endure for the rest of the run. So it worked in a lot of different ways for a lot of different purposes.
Interesting. Okay. Were you ever concerned that workload created a strain on them in season, and that it could create? When did you do it? Was that during season or was that preseason?
No. Well, here's both. All right. So my initial point is all off season, preseason. The 24s is your preseason training camp conditioning test. That's what we ran. After that, coach's discretion. And so if he wanted me to run them whatever, I'd come up with something. We did a thing called, I think I mentioned this on the football side of things, Crossfire. Yes. The Crossfire on the football field, I just squeezed it onto the basketball court. And I don't remember any numbers, but we would go, I think I walked off 7 yards down the sideline and put a cone down. And so we ran across, and we zigzagged the length of the court and by the width. And so the Crossfire transferred everywhere. And so we had also, this is fun. Remember the 5-10-5 a minute ago?
Yes.
We had what's called the Giant Shuttle. So it was great because it's autopilot. You're there, but the coach doesn't do anything. So everybody is on the wherever you want them. You put them on the baseline of the basketball court. You think 5-10-5. You sprint full court. You sprint mid court. You jog the rest of the court. Turn, walk back to mid court, take off. And so it's really a giant shuttle. But so you sprint, jog, walk. You never stop. I don't have a clock. I'm not blowing a whistle. I say, all right, we're going to run 10 of these, and off we go. And so I just take the principle of the 5-10-5, expand it, and here we go. And it makes a great go anywhere, anytime conditioning run for, I don't care who court sports mainly. I do it for tennis, volleyball. If you're indoor or whatever, we're doing it.
Interesting. Yeah. So have you over the years decided that you need to do more speed, less conditioning, or
yes?
Talk a little bit about that.
Let me think how everything is tied together. Everything is connected. Okay. So once we warm up, everything is 95%. Okay, we're just going 95%. And so, if there's some occasion I say, all right, 80% or whatever, everybody just knows Coach King is going to say, all right, game speed. And so we're doing the conditioning and adapting to coach's discretion, observation. Okay, we look terrible. We're dragging. Something's wrong here. Right. I just have never had to do that. I think I'm meticulous. There's a bunch of great coaches out there, so I don't want to highlight me being any different. It's just that, we all are meticulous. We evaluate the work we're doing. We evaluate the level that the athletes are competing on or training on or whatever, and we adjust. And when it comes to program design, I'm not overly, how's it go? Phase 1, week 2, period 3, program 2A. If you come to my facility, I have the notebook. It's called the Blue Notebook. It's got workouts in there based on sport and blah, blah, blah. And they're labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, unload, 1, 2, 3. And so if an athlete has a question or a problem, I go, let me see your workout. Oh, no wonder you're on number 3. We need to be doing program 5, and so it just makes it so easy. And we're on there about 2 weeks at a time. We do a 2-week program 2. Now we're on to week program 3, and they all have different features to them. When I put in more explosive work, when I put the complexes in, that it's all depending on the number of the workout you're on. So, it may go 1, 2, 3, 2, so our unloading or whatever you want to call it is built in.
Have you seen, Coach, some of that? Like, I mean, if I had that, just a flat question, like, what's the one thing that you've seen change since you kind of started this journey to where you're at now? What's if you could pick one or maybe 2 things that you've seen change the most from start to where you're at now in regards to, that, what would you pick? I know it's a very broad question, but I'm curious.
No, we talk about this all the damn time. I'm going to use the F word, so get ready for it.
Okay.
Functional training. Functional has just been, can we stop saying that? All right, well, let's do this. I want you guys to come in and take out all of the non-functional training I'm doing. Okay, because there's a vein and people latch onto it, the younger generation or whatever. It's like, I want to do some functional training. Dude, if I make you faster and stronger, are you not going to be more functional in your sport? I don't do free throw shooting, but let's come on. And so functional training,
define that just in terms for our viewers. When you say functional training, you're specifically talking what?
Well, there's a lot of that's the problem.
That's the problem.
I'm going to say some things, but I don't know if I'm even covering it. Okay, we just do bands and dumbbells. We're just going to do bands because each limb we got isolateral. We're doing one time, and so we're just doing the way the body is in competition. Well, look, if you ever run into another body, I played football through college. Football is a collision sport. Dancing is a contact sport. So, that's what you're the demands of the NBA, for example, on those guys' legs is ridiculous, and so what can I do to keep those quads strong? Guys are reluctant to squat in season, and I get that. So I got to come up with stuff to, that is functional to them as far as keeping leg strength, quad strength, and knee problems away. So,
because if you look at a basketball game, just in itself, the jumping within a game, how many squats are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. People don't. I don't think they understand really kind of the tax that goes into the movements within just the sports that they're playing themselves. And look, every sport has its own things that are different, right? And then you can obviously, you can go from football where you can kind of break it down by what each position group is kind of focused on and those types of things. Basketball, right? Where, okay, maybe it's a little less position wise in terms of, what a center does or what a point guard does, but that's even kind of, very broad across that spectrum now, because it's not even like in the 90s when a center was a center and a point guard was a point guard. Now everybody's kind of you got 7-footers that are firing threes and running fast breaks, and you know what I mean? Like, it's just a different type of game. And then look, even transition to like more of like a baseball setting where look at what those guys entail, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like from a hitting aspect, or now pitchers are their own separate entity, right? Like, it's just, I don't think people really understand the movements or basically, those exercises that you're performing in a weight room and how they directly correlate to exactly what you're doing positionally within your sport itself, right? I mean, lacrosse, hockey, like all of these things have their own separate type of body movements that need to be kind of, looked at, and then go to a game situation. And now you're trying to take that and say, look, like this guy within a game itself is doing, this exercise basically for 4 quarters, and the tax on the body, it's unbelievable.
the thing that people miss is that, well, let me back up. I got to where I understood to when, I don't know when the light came on, but listen, just would you listen? And I just had opportunities that just are crazy weird and so are wild. And I had a guy who was a pitching instructor. He was big time around here. I mean, he was big league. And he took me to meet Tom House at the Texas Rangers at the time. And he was way ahead in doing training and all that. And he was going to, it was that whole thing was a great experience. While I was in the holding room, while I was downstairs at the Rangers weight room, waiting for Tom to come down,
right,
Nolan Ryan was in there working out. Blew my mind. This is Nolan Ryan, and I'm Pee Wee Bob King right now. At that time, I was still in the 80s. And Nolan Ryan was over doing quarter squats on a bar. And I said, dude, I was more tactful. I said, tell me about squats and pitching and how they're not, your shoulder. He goes, well, he just explained how effective it was. He's only going quarter squat, right? So, but he's putting a bar on his back. And that was enough to blow me away because, shoulders and elbows and all that stuff. But he had 135 on the bar, quarter squats, off day, and he was going to keep his legs strong because, he knew pitching was from the ground up, right? So all the things we do with that whole sport-specific thing in mind, it goes wide to narrow, okay? And so I had two guys I worked with. One was an all-pro guard with the Cowboys because I had the offensive line was part of my assignment with off-season training.
That must have been so fun, by the way, Coach. Just so just like that group of squirrels that you had in the 90s. Like, if you look at that offensive line, and then look, Dave's, I don't know, Dave's the Cowboys fan, right? Yeah, I mean, shit. Like, those guys kind of set the standard for what it was to be like a group of linemen that were just big. I mean, they were massive human beings.
Those guys, Eric Williams just have no idea how big he is. He is enormous. I
mean, freaking Leon Lett, right? Like, who about Nate Newton? I mean, some of these guys are monsters, like biggest human beings ever. And you're kind of catching them. I can't even imagine what a day in the life of like you with them. I just can't even.
Well, a couple of anecdotal things. I'm walking through the weight room I'm walking through the facility building. I'm walking out to the field and there's benches along the windows and all. And Eric Williams was sitting over there and I was doing something walking straight ahead. Well, Eric did the pass block punch into my side on my shoulder, almost knocked me. I mean, he just did a 10-degree extension.
Right.
Like, dude, my feelings.
Yeah. I can't imagine.
Unfreaking believable. Because, I worked with the lineman, so I was his guy. And it's like, and the thing about pros more than anybody else is they have such tuned in to what their job is.
Right.
So I'm out there with one of our guys one day, 3,000 pounds. I mean, he's always in the fat club, and he was over doing what I had him doing. I can't remember what it was, but I remember he was doing it. He goes, Bob, I don't know why I got to do this. I only got to go 3 steps. And so it's like, this is the workout. We're doing this. And so
you're like, well, you're not wrong, but this is what we're doing.
So, they knew their game. They knew their stuff. He knew Eric knew how to punch. Nate knew how far he had to run. And so, they're pros are pros. Let me put it that way. They know their stuff.
No doubt. That's what obviously makes them great. It's really interesting talk. So now, when you're doing what you're doing, talk a little bit before we let you go, like what you're focused on now. What are some of the hot points that you work on in when you develop athletes now? Talk a little bit about that before we let you go.
It's interesting how I want to be careful. It sounds, nothing has changed. We're talking about improving, okay, not changing. And so when I was coaching, when I was a defensive coordinator, I wouldn't change the defense just because you ran something that I didn't see the week before. I would adjust, right? I'm going to move. He's in a 2-eye. We got to move him to a 3. And so, whatever. And so when players and individuals come in, it's like, okay, where are you and what do you know? I picked up here's what happens. Kind of unfortunately, I got a 10-year veteran just came in, NFL. And so I'm trying to find out what he's been exposed to. And so the number one rule in this business is never stop learning. That's it. You just never stop learning, because as soon as you think you know it all, you might be in trouble. And so you learn from guys like you. I read as much research as I can digest, which is a tough call. And then talking to people and watching the Coach YouTube is a great source. And so what I'm doing is trying to refine and know, okay, we've done this. The biggest takeaway was the first time my world transitioned out of the pro game into the personal work. I had a summer program, and mostly, high school, a few college kids. 9 months go by, they come back, and it's like, wow, it's like we were just here. The imprinting, the neuromuscular imprinting, the learning curve was gone. I mean, it just was done. So we walked in, and I remember, I'll never forget this. I had my Andy Reid play card ready to go, and that first week was done the first day. So I had to go back and rewrite programming because we weren't starting over. We were continuing. And so the idea is, in my approach, never stop learning, new game, and then what can I do better today that didn't work out yesterday? So I try, KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid.
100%.
No doubt about it. Well, it's been great, Bob, having you on. Really, really a pleasure. Really talking with you. We dived into a bunch of topics. I'd love to at one point maybe we can get Bob on with a couple like another guy. We could have a little speed debate or something. That would be fun.
That'd be
yeah, right. Derek makes the magic happen from that standpoint. So we'll see if he can make that happen. He's good at
that's
that.
always a good time. That's always a good time.
I'd love to do it.
And I think more so too, right, Coach? Because I mean, look, like you've been in this and your experience level, you know what I mean, through and across, like multiple disciplines at the highest level. I mean, look, that's how that was a huge appeal when I saw you.
Multiple sports.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I found you on, like I said, like I just came across a video that you had on TikTok, and I was so tuned in. And then obviously, before you know it, I'm down a rabbit hole and just looking at it. And to be honest, really, I've always had this infatuation with Olympic sports and the Olympics themselves, right? And kind of what goes into that, and the mental discipline and all of those things that, go into only getting the opportunity to really compete at that level every 4 years, right? And whether it's because, look, I came, from a football background of where you practice way more than you play, and you only get, so many games a year in comparison to, basketball where you got 80 or something, or baseball where it's, 162, but just the Olympics itself. So and then obviously the curiosity of a lot of college football players become bobsledders, or they that's where they get those guys, right? That was the initial like wow factor of like, oh, let's see what this guy's talking about a little bit more. And then just to see, once I dove into your history and your past and all that, just the levels that you had been at. You're talking about, the Mavericks going from where they are to where they are now, or just that run with the Cowboys in the 90s when you were kind of there. I mean, that was the era when I was growing up, like starting to really get into the game itself and look at it. And then to just kind of see like how it's all transitioned into, like, if you look at it, like high schools now, especially in Texas, are employing full-time strength and conditioning coaches, right?
Absolutely.
Like, it's just, and look, and that's something that's kind of unheard of I guess, in New Jersey, right? Like there's only a couple of those guys that are full-time guys within the high school setting themselves. It's where we
facilities.
Oh, and that's the whole thing. I mean, look, we have this discussion, all the time on here, because, Coach Shu and I would just, New Jersey is so far behind the 8 ball when it comes to some of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and it's really like, even like with the way that the Texas, school structure is where, sports are built into the school day, and it's a pivotal piece of every, school in the state. Right. And now we, this podcast has allowed us to really kind of network and branch out and see across the nation kind of how guys do things and whatnot, and to see where you really kind of stack up in terms of some things, right? Or just the overall knowledge of guys within the building. But it's been awesome. But I really appreciate you taking the time, man. It's just been so informative and whatnot, and your expertise in that, in these disciplines and stuff. It's so cool to hear it and to hear the stories about where you've been and what you've done. And I mean, I'm sure at some point, buddy, you got to write a book, because you know what I mean? Like, I know you right. I mean, you got to do it, because it's just, you know what I mean? Like the tell all be all, or just the transition of where things have gone to where they are now. I mean, you were at the forefront of literally structuring how teams would utilize a full-time strength and conditioning coach, or just have a facility itself, right? I mean, you're talking about guys that probably barely had a weight room, or what we're talking about, Dave, like back in the day where every team just had a universal workout machine, and that's what everybody lifted on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you've lived it. So you've seen it now to where, look, there are high schools with facilities now that would have, like, tramped, or like, trumped all the NBA facilities at one time. So we can't thank you enough, man. If we can ever do anything for you, please let us know. It's been awesome.
All right. Thanks, guys. If I can do it again, let me know.
All right. No doubt, Bob. Have a great day.
All right,
we'll be in touch.
Too. All right. Thanks.
All right. Bye. That was very interesting.
Love it.
I thought, because it's certainly contrary to most of a lot of the things that we have interviewed recently, I would say, over the last couple of years, right? And
what specifically are you thinking?
Well, there's certain things that I like way more that he does. So I love the contrast stuff. I think that's a big deal. I don't think people talk about that enough, because transitions, even for guys who are just flat sprinters, you know what I mean? I'm not talking about guys that play sports. The gear shifting is a very difficult thing for athletes to develop. Very difficult. There are kids that naturally obviously have that. We know that. But I'm saying for even some really good athletes, they get stuck in acceleration mode. I don't know if you know what I mean by that. Like, they're getting stuck in first gear. They might learn to accelerate well. There's a lot of tools that you could use to teach people to accelerate well. But it's very hard to get people to accelerate and then go to another gear. That's why you see a lot of guys get caught from behind. It's not that they're not fast. It's that they don't know how to. They haven't developed the feel of what it's like to go into another gear. Okay, it's not that they can't. So I loved how we talked about the contrasting stuff. I thought that was really like a part that really we don't talk about enough. Like, I've always done it, but I never hear anybody talk about it. He talked about it, right? And obviously, because he's he's a sport first guy, and I think that's something that he's really developed. Just like I don't think, even though I do see people talking about it, I don't think people talk enough about deceleration and then reacceleration enough either. Right? Because
the start and stop aspect of it. I mean, it's crazy.
Right, and I mean, it's such a simple thing.
That's what sports are, right? Like, literally, that's what sports are. It's start and stop. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, right, and believe it or not, that deceleration action, and because people like to bring up track a lot, that the deceleration skill set also teaches gear shifting. Okay, so because of the way the muscle so even a track person could benefit from it, right? I'll use an example. A long jumper, in order to transition into jumping, they're not purposely decelerating. They're trying to carry the speed as much as they can, but they've got to transition it into a jump, which is deceleration. Okay. I know you're trying to decelerate as little as possible, but it is a transition into some form of deceleration and then reacceleration into the air, right? So you're jumping and accelerating into the air. It's the same thing. It's just you're in the
Right.
air versus the ground. A high
Yep.
jumper runs the curve, builds speed, and then basically slams his foot into the ground so it could go vertical. And he's got to take that deceleration into a vertical acceleration, which he can then do what you would call an acrobatic move over the bar in order to get over a high jump. Because there are plenty of people that can jump really high that can't make their body contort like that, right? So,
Yep.
so even in track and field, there's those areas, right? So sport to me is exactly what you said, right? That's what sport is: acceleration, deceleration, reacceleration. That's what you're doing all the time. And the better you're able to do it, the quicker you're able to do it, the more force you can generate into the ground or handle. I shouldn't say into the ground, but handle, and then be able to then re-explode is so key. So he covered that. The one area I was curious, and I think he answered it really well. I just think that like I'd love to have a debate with this, and not us debating because we have our own. You probably have your own theory. I have my own theory. I would like to have him discuss with some of the, and I actually love that he hadn't heard of Feed the Cats, because anyone that's heard of it just kind of like Tony's phenomenal at like selling it, right? So they adopt some form of it. He's never heard of it. So I'd love to have a debate with him. It doesn't have to be Tony, but like anybody in that space that kind of falls where they believe that conditioning is not as big a part of it. And I'd love to have that discussion because here is a guy who's had a tremendous amount of success. Okay. And he acknowledged that conditioning can detrain speed. So it's not like he doesn't know. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, he gets it.
He knows 100% what the thing that he's going to do, right? Because I asked that question because I was really curious about that, right? Like, so to me, it's like I would love to hear two sides because I
Right,
do
like somebody that says strength is going to increase speed, and then somebody that says strength is going to decrease it. Like you want guys on two people like that are on opposite.
or in the speed, both two guys from the speed world, right? One believes that conditioning is important. One believes that it's not as relevant, right? So they believe that like when you practice your sport, you develop it, right? So I'd love to have that discussion because I am yet not 100% clear in my mind. Oh yeah, I said I'm not 100% clear in my mind as to the role of conditioning and what makes you too tired and could cause injury, and what gives you the necessary amount you need to be able to play your sport. I don't know if that makes sense what I just said, but like that's kind of where my mind is on a lot of it, right? Like, and I'm going to use track as an example, not a sport. If you are a 200-meter dash person, okay, yes, I got to develop your speed to a maximal level. But there has to be a carrying. One of the other guys we had on recently talked about this. You do have to be able to carry your top speed for a long time, right? As long as you possibly can, right? So there is an element to that. Like you can't get away from carrying top speed and then their deceleration aspect. Like we want to limit how long like that the deceleration does not become a complete fall off, right? Like how long can we keep them near top speed, right, in the 200-meter dash? Well, in sports, that also becomes a thing, right? So the 100-meter dash, I don't want to use as an example because you really can get away with a certain amount of like just pure speed stuff, and that. But when you move to the 200, a lot of sports probably mimic more of that than the 100. I don't know if that makes sense, because you are going to be tired and you have to be able to get near your top speed and be able to hold it throughout the game, right? Because basically most people will burn out their top speed within the first quarter or two. Well, the guy who's still playing near top speed in the third or fourth period is going to have more success, right?
Have an advantage.
So capacity is a big deal. How fast can you get does allow you to get near. The one philosophy is the faster you get, when you get tired, you're still higher than another person. I don't know if that's 100% true, because Usain Bolt wins the 100 and 200. He's able to continue to carry it. Okay? There's a guy named Coleman who's the 60 world record holder, can't even hold it, can't win the 100, okay? And certainly cannot win the 200. So who do you want to be your wide receiver? Usain Bolt or Coleman? Right? Usain Bolt may not win the 60 versus Coleman. But Usain Bolt is going to be running near that top speed the whole entire game.
Right.
Whereas Coleman in the third period might be shot. Okay? Just because of his you know what I'm saying? So what theory is correct on that? Because
or is there one?
Or is one, or do we, I honestly think we really just don't know. I hate to say that. I think it's all an experiment, and we don't have enough information that we really
I think
just
it's also what works for, you know what I mean? It's got to be a little bit of what works for you and what doesn't. You know what I mean? I think there's a little bit of that individual aspect to it that kind of goes with it.
Well, and there's specialization. Let's say football. There's specialization, meaning if I have a guy that's like Coleman who could can't last, I'm gonna pull him out of the game a lot. Okay,
right.
I'm gonna use him
as fresh as possible.
I want him as fresh as possible. I got to get him off the field on certain downs, maybe first down. I need him on second and third down, whatever it is, right? Whereas Usain Bolt could play the whole game at receiver. I don't have to take him out, or most of the game, right? I don't have to really take him out, right? And they both are valuable. Both can be all pros, okay?
But in their own.
But they're utilized differently.
Correct.
So maybe the truth is you train to their strengths, right? And
well, that's what I think. I think that's part of coaching, right? Is now you have to go and find that and see who is that, what is that, and now you kind of work around it.
Absolutely. It's but it's really interesting because it was interesting to hear his thought process in an unbelievably experienced in a wide variety of fields. Like basketball is very different than football. You know, it's very different than bobsledding and the skeleton, right? Now they all need speed, obviously, and jumping, but the different as far as how the game works, and one's continuous play, one has a break, one has only one shot. You go in there as fast as you can. That's it. Like, and they're all different. He's trained all of them. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
What
I think that's the best appeal.
Yes, like he's adapted his kind of models in each one.
Whereas a lot of guys are kind of like, I don't want to say one trick ponies, but they're kind of like focused in the certain.
They are.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, like if you now took them and put them in a different sport or a different age group, or maybe went male to female or something of that nature, right? Like it's going to be a very different outlook.
Well, I think he does a really unique job in adapting to his sport,
right?
And he really tries to adapt that training model to his sport. Whereas a lot of people say this is the training model,
right?
And it doesn't matter what the sport is, right? Speed is speed, and it doesn't matter what the sport is. And I would say it's partially true, but it's not the full picture when you get to a sport, right? So I thought that was really interesting conversation, because I wasn't expecting some of the things. So And I just thought it was really, really interesting. I'd love to hear him debate somebody on the different elements, because I think it would be very interesting, because it's definitely something that me and you probably go back and forth with. Like, should I do a little more conditioning? Should I not? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a very difficult question, and it's not a cookie cutter answer, right? But people want to cookie cutter it, so they want to. And look, the truth is, all these things are good, and you have to figure out what works for the athlete. But when you're training mass amount of kids, that's harder to do, and you have to figure out how to make it all work as close as possible to all of them. But anyway, I'll let you go because we got to come back again. That was a great start. Let's put it like that. That was a great start.
Now and then Joe, who's coming on next, he's based out of Rochester, New York, and his main focus is really lacrosse and hockey.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Right, which is
different.
But also for him, and he talked about it, when we spoke briefly, before, he's like, look, these are the two like main kind of sports up here, right? Like lacrosse, and then like obviously hockey. Even being in upstate New York with the lacrosse stuff, like it's just a higher, like it's just mainly what I deal with. He's like, but look, I could talk about anything, but I thought it was interesting because those two sports, right? Obviously, like with the club stuff and lacrosse, like it's just monstrous, you know what I'm saying? And then obviously like the hockey stuff, like those are two really different type of youth programming, right?
Yes,
Where he sees a lot of those athletes that some of these guys are homeschooled just because of their sport, right? Because that's the way it is. So it'll be really interesting to talk to him in a little bit, so I'm excited about that.
That'll be great. Okay, cool.
Awesome.
So I'll see you in a little bit. We'll get to that 1 o'clock. Great first one, and I'll see you in about an hour. All right. Bye.
You got it.